In this video we are going to be discussing Venn diagrams, more specifically three-way Venn diagrams as opposed to two-way Venn diagrams, which focuses on three groups. Being the first video on Venn diagrams, I've called this particular question example 1, and it reads, a group of 50 students were surveyed about their families. They were asked if they had brothers, sisters, or a grandparent. 24 students had at least one brother. 28 students had at least one sister. 7 had both a brother and a grandparent. 9 had both a sister and a grandparent. And 7 students had a brother and a sister only. If every student had at least one of the listed family members and 3 students have all 3 family members, how many? And the question I have got written down the bottom of the page, A, B, C. How many students have only one brother or at least one brother? How many students have at least one sister or only sisters? And how many students have only grandparents or at least one grandparent? The reason why I'm saying at least one is because if any student in this group has one brother, they will fall into the brother category. If another student has 5 brothers, they will also fall into the brother category. It is not dependent on how many brothers these students or sisters or grandparents these students have. It's just asking whether or not they have one. So to do this Venn diagram, we need to create our 3 circles and label them with the 3 groups specified in the question being what the survey was asking the students, their brothers, sisters and grandparents. So we're going to put 50 students in this Venn diagram. When I say I'm going to put 50 students in it, it basically means that once I've completed the Venn diagram, if every single number in the Venn diagram adds together to a sum of 50, then I know I've included every single student that was surveyed. So once I think I've got an answer or a solution for this Venn diagram to put these parameters in, then essentially I add each of these together, and if it adds to 50, then I know that I'm in the right ballpark. I can then check each of these components within the Venn diagram against the parameters in the question and just make sure that I've met each of these parameters. And if I meet all the parameters, then I've answered the question. Now it's not just one question, we had question A, B, C. So it's asking, question A, how many students have only brothers? Okay, now basically it means if they have one brother, then that satisfies this question. So it's really asking for this value here, which is, if I scroll down to get the Venn diagram in view, this value here represents students who only have a brother or brothers. This one, students who have only sisters, would be represented by this value here. And finally, students who have only grandparents would be represented by this value here. So they're the 3 things that will answer and satisfy these questions. So all I need to do, once I've filled it in, is pull those 3 values out and I've answered A, B and C. So to start, what I need to do, and what I like to do, is read the question again. And I call it a critical piece of information, or the critical piece of information, being this number in this section here of the Venn diagram, which represents those students who have at least one brother, one sister and one grandparent. So they've got all 3. Now in the question, if we read this bottom part, it says that 3 students have all 3 family members. So straight up, I've got that critical piece of information as 3. So I put that in. I'm then going to go and check the parameters in the question, or the results from the survey, if you want to think of it like that. And what I have been told is 7, if I look at this last one, I'm told that 7 students had a brother and a sister only. Now, if we look at the Venn diagram, this person here did not have a brother and a sister only. They had a brother, a sister, and a grandparent. So this does not, or is not, a part of this value 7. This zone here in the Venn diagram represents those students who had a brother and a sister but no grandparent. You can see this section is not part of the grandparent circle, which means that they did not have a grandparent. So this 7 I can go and put in the Venn diagram there. Okay, looking at some more information. We're told that 9 had both a sister and a grandparent. So what we need to do is, looking at the sister circle and the grandparent circle, where they overlap represents those 9 students who had both a grandparent and a sister. Now, we don't have to worry about this 3 because it doesn't specify a sister and a grandparent only. If it said only, then we couldn't include the 3 because they didn't have, obviously, a brother. So what we need to identify is that this 9 encapsulates this 3. So this intersectional point between sister and grandparent will add to 9. So 3 plus what number is 9? The answer is 6. If we go back to the information, we're told that 28 students who were surveyed had a sister. Sorry. So what we know is that this circle in the Venn diagram represents the students who had sisters, and we know that there's 28 of them. So that plus that plus that plus whatever that is will add to 28. Now what I have here is 7 and 3, which is 10, and 6 is 16. And if I take 16 from 28, I get 12. And just to check, it's always good to have a calculator with you. Add those numbers together and it should add to 28. So we got the 7 plus the 3 plus the 6 plus the 12, and it most certainly adds to 28. So I've satisfied everything so far, I think. What we then need to do is look at some other pieces of information in the question that might allow us to solve for these things here. We're also told that 7 students had both a brother and a grandparent. It doesn't say a brother and a grandparent only, which means the intersecting point between brother and grandparent, which is represented by this, is going to add to 7, because these 3 people have a brother and a grandparent. You cannot argue that. The question does not say only, so it encapsulates these guys here. So this plus this must add to 7, which is our 4. Now, we're essentially left with one piece of information in the dot point section here, which is 24 students having at least one brother. So there's our brothers, or our circle in the Venn diagram representing those students who had brothers. We've got 7 and 3, which is 10, and 4, which is 14. And the difference between 24 and 14 will be this number here, which is obviously 10. If we add them together, you've got your 7 and 3 to get your 10, you've got another 10 to get your 20, and you've got your 4 to get to your 24 up here. So we've satisfied this one here. The only last piece of information we need now is this one down here, those students that had at least and only one grandparent. So these people here didn't have brothers, they didn't have sisters. These ones were essentially the only children, the children who were born that didn't have any brothers and didn't have any sisters. So to figure this one out, you might think, oh no, I can't do it because I've used all these pieces of information in the question, but I mentioned earlier there's one critical piece up here, the 50 in total. And as I previously stated, if I add all these numbers together, I should get 50. So 10 plus 7 plus 12 plus 6 plus 3 plus 4 plus whatever this is going to add to 50. I get my calculator and I start adding these numbers together. 10 plus 7 plus 12 plus 14 plus 3. Oops, sorry, let me start again. 10 plus 7 plus 12 plus 4 plus 3 plus 6 is equal to 42. Now, 42 compared to the 50 students in the question is 8 different, which means this value must be 8. I know it's 8 because I'm also told that at least every student who was surveyed had at least one of these things. So there's no students sitting out here that have none of these. That's specified here. So once I put my 8 in, I should have answered the question, or I can go about answering the question. This is the hard work right here. That's the heavy lifting. Once you know what these values represent, it's pretty simple to answer these 3 questions. So question A, students having only brothers, would be this 10. Students having only sisters or one sister, 12. And students having grandparents or a grandparent only, 8. And there we have our ABC questions answered, as well as our Venn diagram, our 3-way Venn diagram completed.